Going live on our YouTube page and our Johnny Rowlett Ministries page, and it's fairly good. It says, we'll see about that. So let's see about what this says here. Oh, yeah. Nice metrics. All right. So good morning, Alan Holder, 600. Wow. Yeah, over 400. I'm sure. I don't know. Gail, do you even know what year I started doing this? How many years ago? Was it 3, 4? I don't remember. It's crazy. Bottom line, it's crazy. So
I think it's been about 4.
It's been at least 4 years. And I can't remember when Alan started jumping in on this. I'm not sure why there's only 3 people watch. Man, Facebook is just a mess. Come on, Facebook. I don't know what your problem is. I'm not saying any. I've been nothing but respect, full of respect. I've not gotten on here and caused any issues or pains or hurts or whatever. So I don't understand it. Put out the information that I'm on there. You know what, Gail? I wonder if you could go in and invite. You know how Mike's wife used to do that? It was like go in and invite people. I wonder if we could do something like that. I wonder how you can literally right now. There's Effie White. Effie, I say White all the time. It's not Effie White. It's Effie Witt, right? Would you say Witt? Witte. I don't know how you pronounce that. Good morning to everybody. So grateful. Welcome to episode 600. It's been 600 episodes in approximately 4 years of studying the Word together. And here we are on a beautiful Thursday morning in Michigan, and grateful to be with you. I don't have a lot of time today. I think today's message is going to be pretty short, but I do feel like that the message that I've got today, just a short, succinct thought, I think might be able to kind of help us in sharing the gospel or sharing the good news. So let's just get right into it. I've just been chewing on this morning, and there's Heidi Pletch. Another hot, nasty day in Yuma. Oh, yikes. I don't even know. But I mean, it is June there. I can't imagine how hot it is in Phoenix. I mean, in Yuma, Arizona. I want to read you this. I can't let this go. I can't let this one verse go. It's just been sitting on me all night, and I keep hearing it over. I had 2 or 3 things last night that I felt like God was just kind of Emperor Constantine. Thank you, Mom. That's who it was. Who did I say? Well, yesterday I was having a hard time remembering the emperor that was the one who kind of finally allowed Christianity in or twisted it to fit his own world. But it was Constantine, because is still in Rome today is the Constantine Arch. And in that arch, it depicts the battle where Emperor Constantine decided that he believed in this God called and Jesus. But he really, it's funny because he took what he wanted out of it and then left the important parts out of it too. And Cornelius, I said Cornelius, you're right. The house of Cornelius is where Paul went to preach. I was just struggling with that name. Thank you, Mom. Appreciate it. Robert Weekly, good morning. Alan Holder said, just an FYI, I'm just now getting the notifications you went live. Facebook is slow. All right, well, good. Good. Maybe that's why Robert Weekly's joined. Are you, Robert's in Arizona. Mom, are you seeing the notifications? Bob Amble, are you seeing notifications saying Johnny Rowlett is live today or whatever? Hey, good morning, Rhonda Lopez up in Great Falls, Montana. It's supposed to be 95 degrees. And it was just snowing up there like a week or 2 ago. It's that's crazy. That's truly ridiculous. So anyhow, let's see who's over here. Good morning, Linda Bailey. Good morning. Going to work today and into the 90s. It's 90 degrees down in southern Idaho. That actually kind of makes sense because it's always kind of cold there in southern Idaho. I mean, hot there this time of year in southern Idaho, really all of Idaho. Heidi Pletch says, I saw it. Okay, good. And Alyssa Byers, my cousin who just had her number one son get married. So that's pretty cool. How'd the wedding go? So I know this is all banter back and forth, and this is part of what we're supposed to do because it's part of the relationships that we're building, and I love you guys and appreciate you. And if you're watching this later and you hate all this stuff, I get it. Just forward past all of this and go straight into the word. We do appreciate you joining us, regardless of when, how, and whatever. So let's get into the word. There's been you ever read something or kind of something was revealed to you and then you just can't get off of it. You just cannot just move on. And that's kind of where I'm at today is I just keep coming back to this verse. And let's read it together. It's 1 John chapter 1, verse 5. This is the message which we have heard from him and declare to you that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. At all. No darkness at all. I think it's important to understand that's a whole thing that we could spend another whole week on. In him there is no darkness at all. But actually, the thing that's just been that I've been chewing on that I just can't get off of is this idea of this is the message. The message. I feel like if John, who is the author of Revelation, if John, who's the author of John, if John is this incredible messenger, and then he says something is the message, I feel like we should really tune into that. And I think we just even yesterday, I feel like I was hitting on the fact of that he is light and in him is no darkness. And that was my point. And then later on, I started thinking, this is the message. This is the message that we should be giving. This is the message that we should be talking about. This is the message that we should be delivering. This is the message that we should be portraying. This is the message right here, that he is light and in him is absolutely no darkness. I want to talk to you about how sometimes these things, boy, I'm not trying to be careful. I just want to say this, phrase it just right. Sometimes things get into our life, our mind, our mindsets, and we just start taking them as fact. And I'm definitely one of those kind of people. I do not remember my mom ever teaching me about fear. I do not remember my pastor ever teaching me anything about fear. I do not remember that there was anything in my life that made me believe that I should come to Jesus or else. I do remember that as I was growing into the knowledge, as I was maturing into Christ, I began to get a distinct understanding, either get right or get left. I don't know where that came from. I don't remember it being something my mom taught. I don't remember it being something my grandma taught. I don't remember it being something my pastor taught. And I think it probably came from school. Even though I went to a Christian school, there was all kinds of different doctrines and theologies being taught there that were, a lot of them, whacked out. Or maybe it just came from my own understanding. And I started to believe that the crux of it is that if you don't if you don't follow God, his ways are not our ways. We don't always understand God. So therefore, you better be careful to stay under his covering and grace. Because if you do something that gets out from underneath him, he's going to hammer you. He's going to roll down on you like a strong storm and blow you out. I do believe that there is a covering. His grace is sufficient. His covering is excellent. And if we remove ourselves from that, we are susceptible to pain. There are consequences for our actions. I do believe that. Somehow, though, I attested that pain as being delivered by God, that God was getting me to prove to me or to train me. And I do believe that God can use those circumstances and situations. It's such a fine, minute line that is hard to always define. But now for me, it comes back to this thing that in him there is no darkness. So if there's something going on in my life that's not good, it's not God. Including, it's not God delving it out to get my attention. I'll give you an example of that. Now, listen, I want to be careful because I can feel all of the pushback. I can feel people going, yeah, but, God can, he's like a parent and he's going to get you, if he's going to spank you or get your attention. I think that's a lie. I'm just being bold-faced about it. I've been taught, I have heard that in many churches as late as just a few weeks ago. I've heard that. I heard that from my own church. I just don't buy it. I just don't think. I do think that he can use things that happen to us as a correcting, learning, teachable moment. I don't believe that God delivers those things into our lives to teach us a lesson. I believe that he uses our circumstances and the things that happen to us. Listen, we live in a fallen world, and sometimes crap happens. Sometimes situations happen. Even if we were as holy and righteous as we could be, there's still situations and circumstances that we find ourselves. And what I notice is that there's two sides of that it's one thing to say that God is somehow trying to deliver these things to bring correction. The problem with teaching that is that we can also then go so far as if I got cancer that is of no fault of anything but the fact that I put food in my gut and live in a world that has cancerous things in it, and we're eating things we shouldn't eat, we're doing things we shouldn't do, putting things in our body we shouldn't put in there, and then somehow we turn around and say, oh, I must have done something wrong to upset God because he gave me this cancer. And it sounds so absurd when I'm saying it, but I've literally heard maybe hundreds, if not thousands of people say stuff like that. Well, he's just trying to teach me something. Can he use cancer to get glory? Can he take a bad, negative situation to turn it around and to say, look to me? Let me restore you. Let me renew you. Let me draw you closer. Absolutely. But it's the attesting that God brought this storm upon me to get and to correct and to teach me. No, he can absolutely use whatever befalls us to bring us closer to him. I'll give you an example of how this little thing, and like I said, this has nothing to do with my mom, nothing to do with my raising and teaching, because I've really given this a lot of thought. And I remember specifically that this happened to me. Let's see. I'm going to read what Alyssa says real quick. My situation happened because God was upset with me for not being in church every time the doors open. Alyssa, that's sick. And that is it permeates so much in the church. And you wonder why people have left the church by the droves. It's that kind of statement right there that has pushed people away. I just want to make it very clear. I'm not against the church. I'm for the church. I believe you should be in a Bible-believing church. With all of my heart, I believe that. But we got to systematically go and look at what has pushed people away. And it's false teachings, false doctrines, just like that. And I'll give you an example. This story that I'm going to tell you has been something. I'll just be honest with you. In some ways, I regard it as a good thing that happened to me, because I believe that it sort of helped me make better decisions in my youth. I think I was about 14 years old, and 4 things happened to me in a pretty close time period that I attested that it was God. Number 1, I remember specifically, I had a mongoose, a black and yellow mongoose BMX bike, and I would just go uptown, up all the way down Fry Boulevard, all the way to Sun and Spokes, and every lot, not every Saturday, but many Saturdays, I would just go and just ride my bike all day long. And I came across this. I went to this place called Yellowfront, and Yellowfront was there's Yellowfront and Sears in the same kind of small parking lot, storefront. And I was riding my bike up on the sidewalk, and I looked down, and there's a written on the concrete said, "No bicycles or skateboards allowed." And I was feeling my kind of tough guyness, which I never was. And I remember saying specifically, F that. Except I didn't use just because I wanted to say the word. I wanted to, I felt so cool that I was a cool kid that I knew that word. So I said out of my mouth, F that. And about that time, somebody walked out and opened the door. And guess what? In Yellowfront, the door opened out. The sign on the sidewalk wasn't because it was against bicycles or skateboards. It was to protect people like idiots like me that were on the sidewalk. And the door opened out and hit me in the jaw. and knocked me cold out on the ground. I don't think I actually went knocked out completely, but I was out. I was definitely dizzy. And the first thought in my mind, the first thing that jumped up in me was, I'm sorry, God. Like it was God. Like God caused that whole thing to happen. And okay, here's what I want you to do. Lady, I want you to go and open that door, and Johnny's coming in just a second. I want you to time it perfectly and hit him right in the jaw, because I got to teach him a lesson. No, I put myself in a bad situation and was doing something stupid, and in essence, I got caught. It caught me on the jaw. That's what it caught me. The next day or so, my friends, Bobby Scott, who was always a bad person for me. He was a bad influence. I'm joking. He was my best friend. And him and about 4 or 5 of us, they were building houses on our street. And so we dressed up as like Mission Impossible in black caps and black shirts and put black on our face. And we're going to go break into these houses and pee in the corners. Well, to show you how not bad I was, these houses didn't even have walls. They were just, you could have broke into the side, the corner, the front, the back, there was no walls. So, but for me, I had this adrenaline rush because I knew that it was wrong. I knew it was wrong. And so we did this whole nut, and rolling up and got a rifles like we're going to shoot something. And remember, I was 14, and they all like peered different ways. They pulled into the house and rolled around the wall. And I got up against the side and I turned inside. And because I had so much of the blood running to my head because I was so nervous because to me, it was wrong. I passed out. I passed out, like literally passed out, fell down, hit my head. And my buddies are all like, pick him up, like stupid Johnny. We can't do anything wrong with Johnny and my thought was that was God getting me because I wasn't supposed to be doing that. And I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing that. Whereas I do believe the Holy Spirit on the inside of me is like, this is below you, Johnny. Don't, this is beneath you. You shouldn't be doing this. But I don't believe it was God causing me to fall down and pass out. It was blood rushing to my head. You feel me? I put myself in a bad situation. But as a kid, I believed that was God that knocked me out. A couple of days later, Bobby Scott and we had a friend of ours visiting my mom and dad's house, and he was staying in this back bedroom. And I went into his room and I found that he had a girly magazine, a porn magazine. And Bobby and I were looking at it like, ooh, whatever. And no one else was home. And all of a sudden, while we're looking at it, the lights went out in the entire house. We ran like I looked like I had gotten shot by buckshot. I ran out of that house screaming, thinking that was God himself. Turn the lights out. And I ran outside and there was no other lights in the whole neighborhood out but ours. And I said, I'm sorry, God, standing in my front yard, and the lights came back on. I'm not joking. Now, I believe that it was probably my sister. Now, but to me, a 14-year-old boy, I believe that was God that was shaping me. Now, listen, some of those things that I learned, they did help me, because later on, there were specific things that I did not do. I did not put myself into situations because of the fear of God. Now, I want to be careful, because I believe the fear of God, we use that word wrongly. I don't mean being afraid of him. I mean, one of the things that's wrong with our country and wrong with our church is that we have lost the respect of God. And somehow I misinterpreted his love for me as between respecting him and wanting to honor him, and it turned into fear of him. And that's the line. I do believe that having this respect of God and not wanting to do anything to my father that would displease him would have worked wonders in my life. But somewhere along the line, it turned into fear. True fear. Now, see, here's the thing. I got to say this, and I know my dad might watch this, and I don't mean it, but there was a time in my life where I was terrified of my dad. Terrified. And so that bridge to being terrified of God was also a pretty easy bridge to cross. And I think what God would rather me have done would be not to be terrified of him, but to honor him and to respect him and to love him enough to keep his statutes and want to be in the house with God, if that makes any sense. There was one other thing that I did that I remember, and then I've got to go, but my dad at 14 years old, for some reason, he bought me a Nova, a 1969 primer gray inline six, nasty, broke down Nova. And I was so grateful for it. I loved it so much. I was only 14. I couldn't even drive it. And what a temptation, what a horrible thing for my dad to do, right? What a bad dad I had. He parked this thing in the driveway, and I could work on it, but I couldn't drive it. And of course, there came the day that he and my mother went away. And I had my buddy that lived down the street, and he had a girlfriend. His name was Brett, and he had a girlfriend. So I went and picked him up in my new Nova, my very used Nova, and his girlfriend, and they sat in the back seat. Nothing bad. We're 14. They just I was chauffeuring them. It was really a cool thing. We just drove around the neighborhood in my little inline six piece of junk Nova, and I turned the corner, and who should be there? One of my dad's best friends. And he pulled up alongside of me, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm underage driving. That's what I'm doing. He said, "Go park that back in the driveway." And no uncertain terms, and absolutely let me know that he was upset with me. And that's back in the day where everybody parented each other's kids. And I turned that car around and went and parked that Nova in the driveway. And he for sure told my dad, and I for sure got in big trouble over that. And my dad ended up selling that car, probably giving it away. And it broke my heart. And I got caught. That's the first thing I thought. And my mentality was, see, I can't get away with nothing. So listen how this train, instead of thinking like, you know what, Father, that was beneath me. That was below me. And I put myself into a bad situation, and I'm sorry. And I just honor you, and I love you. And I won't do that again, because I don't want to dishonor you. Instead, I had a mentality that God was against me, and God was going to get me. And everywhere I turned, I had to be careful of this God who was out to get me. And that's literally how I know it might sound crazy to you, but that's how I live my life. And long story short, later on, in some ways it helped, because there was a time when I was 17 years old, and my dad, we were in Claude, Texas, and there's these two girls that wanted to go on a date with me, and I picked them both up. My dad said, "You know what, Johnny? Take my truck." My dad had a beautiful 1-ton dually that was painted the same color of his race car, and he allowed me to take his truck to go pick these girls up and drive them around and go to Dairy Queen and just be a kid. And I was so grateful for that. My dad said, the only thing I ask is that you don't drive to Amarillo, which is 20 miles away. Don't drive to Amarillo. I started taking those girls, and I picked them both up, and I looked good and they looked good, and we were having this great little time. And there's Claude, Texas is the size of what it sounds like, a dirt clod. And within 10 minutes, within maybe 30 minutes, they were tired of going from stop sign to stop sign, going to Dairy Queen, stop sign, Dairy Queen, stop sign. And they said, hey, let's go to Amarillo. And I'm like, oh, no, man. They're like, come on, you sissy. Come on. Let's just go. No one's ever going to know. Let's go. And I started driving to Amarillo. I got about 3 miles outside of Claude, and the picture of all the things that had happened to me came to my mind. Instead of me thinking, this is beneath me, this isn't pleasing to my earthly dad or my heavenly father, I should turn around. Instead of that, I had a nightmare scenario that entered my mind. And it was that the rear end, I pictured it in my mind. The rear end came out while we're driving, broke off of the truck. This didn't happen. This is in my mind. And it broke off, and it caused us to jack the truck up, and we flipped the truck and landed and crushed and killed the 2 girls. That's what I pictured in my mind. And I started trembling, and I turned that truck around and drove those 2 girls home and dropped them off at their house. And they were so ticked at me. And, you know, I'm like, I don't care. I just saved your life, because God is going to get you because you're with me, because God's angry with me, and he's going to kill you because he is mad at me. That's how I lived my life. And so what happened to me, come on, you got to the end of this, is throughout then my whole life, I was terrified of God. Instead of having an authentic, beautiful relationship with the Father, I was terrified of him. And there came a day where I messed up and got and sinned, if you will. And I got outside of God. And guess what? Calamity didn't happen. Something bad didn't happen. So then I'm like, I got away with that one. Let me stretch it. Because my relationship wasn't really with God. I didn't have a loving relationship with him. I had a terrified relationship with him. And so now it became about testing my limits. And I kept pushing that limit and kept pushing that limit and kept pushing that limit. And next thing I know, I was cheating on my wife, and I was addicted to pornography, and I was in a place that I couldn't get out of. And I ended up losing absolutely everything of my life. And it wasn't God. It was all me. And I realized what happened to me is I got a little bit out, a little bit out, and a little bit out. And I started thinking, wait a minute. All of this is just a bunch of religious crap. And I've been lied to my whole life. And this whole God thing is just a lie. Because I didn't really have a relationship with him. I had a fear of him. And when he didn't act like I thought he should act, and beat me down and tear my life up, I just stepped out. And I did it all by myself. I quit going to church. I quit reading my word. I quit praying. And I quit worshiping.
And that's probably why people push the whole fear thing, so that people won't do that.
Wow. That's what she's saying is that's probably why they push the agenda of fear, so they could try to control people. But what they don't understand is there's only so far you could control people. If I had gone back to that time as a child, and I had the maturity to understand that it wasn't my father that was causing the pain, that it was me putting myself into those situations and my Father calling me to a deeper relationship with him, and that revealing to me who he was, and understanding that the choices I was making was below me, and that would have pushed me into a deeper relationship whereby I understood or had a revelation that I was on the inside with the Father, not on the outside. Then later on, I wouldn't have even made those decisions. I wouldn't have even pushed those limits. I know that it sounds, and it's like the line is very thin, and it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but it's the dichotomy of difference is vast. Is that it's not God causing the calamity, and God is not angry and trying to wound you and hurt you. He's taking situations that you put yourself into, and he's allowing those things to be able to teach you and grow you, but he's not the author of them. Why? How do I know this? Because John says it clear as a bell. He is light, and in him there is no darkness. And I don't care what anybody else could say. People could say, well, what about these verses? And what about, I don't care what verses you put together. I don't care how you try to stream different verses. I can show you time and time again that God is not the author of chaos. He's not the author of calamity. He's not the author of pain. He's not the author of darkness. There is no darkness in him. And that is our message. That is the message of the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ, that the Holy Spirit is on the inside of you, reminding you who you are, and the choices that you're making are below you. And God is not causing you pain. You are causing you pain. And he can take your pain, take your darkness, and turn it into light, and turn it into good, and turn it into joy, and turn it into peace, and turn it into hope. God is not against you. He's for you. He's the author and the finisher of your faith. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. We have an enemy. His name is Satan. And Satan is the great deceiver and the decapitator of our faith. This is our message. I want you to think about every word that comes out of your mouth when you're ministering to those around you. If you're not speaking light, then you are by default speaking darkness. If you're not speaking life, then you are by default speaking death. And you may be able to control somebody for a certain amount of years. Religion may be able to keep somebody contained inside of a box or a fence, but sooner or later, they are going to break out that fence, and they're going to find that God is not trying to control them. He's not trying to hate them. He's not trying to hurt them. He's trying to teach them and love them and grow them and mold them and shape them and remind them who they are in Christ. Crucified, bloodshed, Jesus Christ. Today, I just want you to think about this. What is your message? John says, this is our message. If you could just break down, it should be written on every Facebook account you can find. This is our message, that God is light, and in him there is no darkness. This verse will forever be my favorite. And I hope it is yours as well. Have a blessed day. And know your Father. Please seek him. Don't be terrified of him. Why Satan would want you, think about the plan of the enemy. If the enemy could make you terrified of God, you wouldn't go to him. He wouldn't be your source of hope, your source of light, your source of light. Because fear will push you away. Love brings you together. That's all I have to say. Have a great day. I love you all. Have a good day.